Good morning, everybody. My name is Beth Kirchner. I am a QuickBooks Certified ProAdvisor, and I will be talking or just doing a real basic kind of introduction to QuickBooks Online here this morning. Just to kind of test out our little sidebar here, how many people are currently using QuickBooks Online? If you could just raise a hand. Looks like a couple people currently using it. Okay, perfect. Well, I am going to be talking about QuickBooks Online. Again, just a real basic overview of it here this morning. I am currently in a test company or a sample company that QuickBooks provides. If you go online and just Google QuickBooks Online Sample Company, they call it their test drive company. And once you log in, this is your dashboard. Your opening screen is what you're going to see here. As if you've ever used the QuickBooks desktop version, you'll notice right off the bat that this looks a lot different than their desktop version. Ultimately, it all does the same thing, but again, it looks very, very, very different. So on your dashboard here, you know, you've got your company name. You can add logos. You can customize this a little bit as to what you want to see. If you have different users, different logins, different people in your companies that are using or have access to your QuickBooks, you do have a privacy tab right here. This will hide some of the financial information on your dashboard. So if you have somebody that, you know, say just does accounts payable for you, you don't necessarily want them to see your bank account balances and all this kind of stuff. You can choose this privacy and it will hide all of the financial information on your dashboard. So if we just start scrolling down here, you can, there's different tasks here that you can do. You can, different setup options here. But if you just scroll down here a little bit, I just kind of want to touch on the financial end of it here. This here shows your invoices that you have, what you've billed out to customers, what's overdue, what's not due yet, what payments you've received, what you've deposited in the last 30 days. You've got expenses over here. You can modify this to see a specific time period if you'd like. You can see your bank accounts here. You do have an edit. Anytime you see this pencil here means you can edit the information that you see. So if you want to see maybe just the checking account or just a credit card balance, you can modify this section here. And then if you scroll down a little bit further, you have basically just a real quick profit and loss, income, expenses. Again, you can modify your time period as to what you want to see. And you have just your sales here. You can modify which month you want to look to see how your sales have been progressing. In this banking section here, or bank account section here, you can connect your accounts automatically. So if you have online banking and the bank is compatible with QuickBooks Online, you can actually sync your accounts where all of that information then pulls in automatically from the bank. It saves a lot of data entry. Works the same also if you use credit cards. You can link your credit card accounts and that information all pulls in, or you can just go right to your register here from your dashboard. Just pick the account that you want to see and it will take you right to your checking register. The first time in QuickBooks and throughout this sample company here, you'll see it pops up a lot of like tips and tricks here, kind of what is a register you'll see here. A lot of this stuff, if you have questions or are just kind of playing around in here, want to learn more, these pop-ups are a great way to just kind of dive in a little bit deeper as to where you're at. So that is basically our dashboard in a nutshell. Again, this is just the main screen that you come to when you first log into your QuickBooks Online. So what I'm going to do today is just kind of go right down the list here, kind of show you what each of these options are and how they work. And we'll just keep moving right along here. So the next tab down is the banking tab. Like I had mentioned, if you sync your bank with your QuickBooks Online, what will happen then is you'll come to this screen here. Now all of these transactions down here have pulled right from your bank, and QuickBooks does its best to code these transactions. If you've used, say, CenturyLink telephone and you're set up on an automatic payment, if you code your CenturyLink telephone expenses to telephone expense, every time then that a CenturyLink transaction comes through from your bank into your QuickBooks will automatically just code that to your telephone expense. And like I said, it saves you a lot of data entry. So it looks like here on December 1st, a transaction from Amazon came through. QuickBooks wasn't sure where to put it, so they just say it's an uncategorized expense. Actually, take that back, this is a deposit. You've received $89.99. And then this last column here, QuickBooks is asking, what do you want to do with this? Do you want to add this transaction into your bank register? If you have a bunch that you want to add, you can just simply select here and go to batch actions, and you can either accept them or exclude them. But what I want to show you too is, because say this was a refund, you had ordered office supplies at Amazon and you returned some because you ordered the wrong ink. So really you want to recode this to office supplies expense. If you double click on this transaction, you'll see here that you can change then your uncategorized expense to whatever account that you want to use. So we're going to use office expense here. You can add some notes here in the detail if you want to, and then I'm just going to add this transaction. So you'll see now that this transaction is gone from my banking information, but if I go to my bank register now, you'll see here's that transaction. So on 12/1, we have some office expense refund from Amazon for $89.99. It's now in our bank balance. It's in our checking account. This little C here means it's cleared because QuickBooks knows that this transaction was manually added from our bank feed. So it knows that it already hit the bank, so it's cleared. So another nice feature with this is by syncing your bank account to your QuickBooks is it really kind of eliminates the bank reconciliations at the end of the month, because if you're bringing everything in right from your bank, your checking account in QuickBooks is essentially automatically reconciled. So then going back to our bank feeds here, so that's how you would add a transaction. Same thing if it's an expense. So it looks like we had an ACH transaction here for $150. QuickBooks didn't know where to put it. If you double click on here, we can choose what it is. We can add the transaction. If the transaction needs to be split, say part of it is rent, part of it is supplies, you can do that here. So we're going to say $100 of this was for rent, and we're going to say the rest of this was for an office expense. You can split your transaction that way. You'll see down here if you have mistyped something or if you're not accounting for the total amount, QuickBooks will let you know that you have a difference. Once your difference is 0, your Save and Add button becomes available. We can save that transaction and add it to our check register. Now, if you are writing checks to people, payroll checks or just vendor checks, whatever the case may be, when that check then clears the bank, QuickBooks says, hey, you got a squeaky clean car wash here, transaction coming through your bank for $19.99, but I already see a check in your QuickBooks for this account. Is this the same thing? If it is, you can just simply click match. By clicking match, it just takes it off of your bank feed. You already have it recorded in your register. You're good to go. So I'll show you here. So on November 10th, we had a squeaky clean. If you double click on here, it tells you again, this was a credit card expense that you've already entered into your QuickBooks. They see it. They want to know if it's the same. We're going to click match, and it just goes off from our bank feed. So then if you go to your register, here's our transaction that we just entered, 1110. Squeaky Clean Car Wash, $19.99. We've got our C that it's been reconciled because it came through from our bank feed. So that's how the bank feeds work. You'll notice because that was a credit card transaction, QuickBooks knows to put it into our credit card register. You can change registers from here if you want to go into your checking account. It gives you your bank balance here. And this is the actual bank balance. This is your QuickBooks ending balance. If you want to reconcile the account, which I still would recommend doing every month, just in case there's something missed or you need to make any adjustments, you can reconcile right from here as well. And that is our banking tab here. You do have some bank rules here. You can set up rules. It saves some time when you are syncing those bank accounts or credit accounts with QuickBooks. So you'll see here that we set up a rule called fuel, and we're saying, hey, if the bank text comes over and the text contains the word shall, we want the QuickBooks then to set the category to automobile fuel expense. So then anytime a shell transaction comes through from the bank, QuickBooks knows then to put it to fuel expense. If you want to add a new rule, you can set up rule whatever you want. Let's see, we'll just keep using CenturyLink. So any money is out for any bank accounts, whether it's a checking account or a credit card account. We're going to say if the bank text contains CenturyLink and it's an expense, we want it to go to a telephone expense or a utility expense. You can also choose here then that to automatically add that to your books. So anytime a CenturyLink transaction would come through from your bank feed, it would not show up, but then on your bank feed screen, where you would not have to add or match the transaction. QuickBooks would just automatically then put it into your bank register. So then when you have your rules set up, you'll see here there's 3 different rules, 1, 2, and 3. QuickBooks starts at the top. So the first thing that they're going to do is, if it fits into this rule, it's going to apply the settings for this rule. If nothing applies, it's going to drop down to the second rule. Nothing applies to either first or second, it'll drop down to the third. So you can move these rules into the order that you want them in, however you want QuickBooks to look at them. But again, this is just another quick little thing you can set up. You don't have to use them. But if you have like a reoccurring transaction that you know every month of loan payment or a utility payment that's just going to automatically come out of your account every month, you can set up a rule to say, hey, I don't need to see this in my bank feed. Just go ahead and put it into my register right away. So that's our banking tab. Next on our list here is sales. Now the sales is basically your accounts receivable. QuickBooks Online is constantly upgrading and changing things in here. They're just trying to make it as easy as possible for people to use. So when you think of sales, you think, okay, what am I doing in sales? I'm selling stuff. Okay, those are customers. So you'll see then across the top here, we've got our sales, our invoices, our customers, and our products. So when this first tab, all sales, lists all your sales. These are all of the invoices and payments. Anything that has to do with accounts receivable then here is listed. If you double click on any of them, it'll take you back into whatever that was. So this happens to be a payment that we received from Cool Cars. It paid for this invoice. If you click on the invoice, it takes you back to the original invoice that you billed to Cool Cars. So you can see what it was for. You can see here it was paid. If you click on this 2 payments here, it'll show you then that this invoice was paid with 2 different payments on those 2 different dates. So anytime you see like a blue lettering or something underlined, you can click on that and it will take you to that link or to that transaction. All right, so back to our sales screen here. On the top here, you'll see it just kind of gives you, again, a brief status of where you're at with things. Right now, you don't have any estimates out there, but you have 2 unbilled activities out there. You have 10 invoices that are overdue. You have 20 open invoices, and you've had 12 invoices that have been paid within the last 30 days. So this is just kind of a brief snapshot of where you're at. If you don't want to see it, you can certainly hide it, but it's there for you if you ever want to see it. If you click on any of these boxes, it'll tell you, or it'll bring up what it is. So I just click on this 12 paid in the last 30 days, and here they are right here. All right, so then if you go to invoices, this here is now where you would see all of your invoices. So, and this is just invoices now. So you've got all of your different invoice numbers, your customers. I'm trying to make that bigger, but this is the date that you created the invoice, the due date of the invoice, the balance that is open on the invoice, and the total of the invoice. And then it gives you a status here. So it's telling you, hey, this invoice to Barnett Design, it's overdue, but it's not been sent. You can change these, that you've sent it, you viewed it, they've paid it, the deposit, so you can kind of track where, you know, what the status of this invoice is. You can send the invoice. You can email invoices right through online. You can print them and mail them. You can receive your payment right here. Again, and also from this drop down, you can print, send, you can view the invoice. So there's lots of different ways to get to different sections here within the QuickBooks Online, same as if you are used to the QuickBooks desktop version. So we're going to click this guy here and we're going to receive this payment. We just got a check in the mail from them, Barnett Design. So you'll see here, we're going to receive the payment. We'll receive the payment today, which is December already, crazy. It's still going to go to our undeposited funds, but let's say they only paid $100. So you'll see down here, it's got our invoice that we're paying against. The original amount is $274.50. They're only paying $100. So you can click Save and New. This drop down, you can save and close. Takes you back here. So now if I go to Customer here, here's our Barnett Design. And you'll see here's the invoice that's overdue, but we've already received $100 towards this invoice. So the balance of the invoice is $174.50. All right, so going back now to here. So this is a list of all of our customers. It's got their contact information here. If you double click on any of them, it will take you into the history for that particular customer. Here's their mailing address, telephone number. You can add notes here. You can edit your customer here, put in as much or as little information here as you'd like. You can make your customer inactive here. Tells you here what they've got open, what they've got overdue. If you want to do a new transaction here, you can either send them a new invoice, receive a payment, send them an estimate. You can do a sales receipt for this particular customer, a credit memo, a delayed charge, time activity, or send them a statement. So there's lots of different things that you can do for your customers here. So here's a transaction list, and again, here's your customer details. So instead of going into edit, you can go here. Basically, this is the same information, and you can edit here. So like I had mentioned earlier, there's a lot of different ways to get to the same screens to make the same different changes, whatever your personal preference is on how to get there. Then the last tab that we have in this section are our products and services. And here, if you track inventory, here's where your inventory would be. So, or your, services, non-inventory parts, anything that you're selling would be in this section. Works just the same if you double click on it. It takes you into that particular item. You can say whether or not you sell this to your customers or whether it's just a non-inventory part. You can edit it from here. You can make it inactive. You can duplicate something. If you track your inventory, it'll tell you here that if something is low in stock or if something is out of stock. Again, anything that's in blue you can click on. So this is saying, hey, do you want to see all of your lists? Well, if you click here, it's going to take you to every single list that QuickBooks has to offer. So it kind of leaves your inventory section, but if there are any kind of list that you want to see specific to those items. You've got more here. You can manage your categories. You can run reports. You can add new. You can import item lists if you have them in a spreadsheet or something. You can import them in there. Again, if you don't want to see this, you can always hide it. Lots of different customizations as to what you want to see. So here too, you'll see the sprocket here, and it'll show you, you can say, okay, I don't want to see the SKUs. Takes away that SKU column. I want to see what income account each are pointed to, and it will show you here then what income account is this particular item is pointing to. So you've got, again, different customizations that you can see here. You can say you only want to see 50 items at a time. You want them grouped by category. You can show, pick and choose what columns you want to see here. You can export these items right to Excel from here, or you can print this list from here as well. Here you can filter if you want to see everything that's active, everything that's inactive, or if you just want to see everything. If you want to see a specific category, and it just modifies your list then to your parameters. All right. So then we'll go to our expenses here. Now, expenses are basically your accounts payable. So your accounts payable, any bills that you have coming in, those kinds of things. So there's not as many options up here. You just have your expenses and you have your vendors. So here are all the different vendors that you have. It looks very similar to your customers. You have, some summary data up here. You have a purchase order out there. You've got 4 overdue invoices. You've got 5 invoices that are still due, and you've paid 21 invoices in the last 30 days. Again, if you click on any one of these, it will list that information down here. You can hide it if you don't want to see that. You can double click on that particular vendor and it will give you all of the history transactions that you've done with that vendor. You can go into vendor details and see the vendor information. You can edit here. You can edit here. If you hover over the telephone here, their telephone number pops up there if you need to call them for something. And it will tell you here again if there's any open or overdue invoices with this particular vendor. You can do a new transaction. You can enter a new bill from this vendor. You can enter just an expense from this vendor if you want to write them a check, do a purchase order, or if you receive a credit from them as well. And we'll get into how to do so, we'll create some invoices and create some vendor bills and pay them and those kinds of things here in a little bit. I'm just giving you kind of an overview of our tabs here. So again, if you double click on something, you'll see here, we paid this bill, Cal Telephone. We paid it with a MasterCard. The balance was, this is the balance of our MasterCard account. This is the amount that we paid to Cal Telephone, $56.50. We paid this bill with it. It was the original amount, and the open balance, we paid it in full. So we've got the amount to apply, $56.50 here. So now we've paid that invoice in full. So here's the original invoice, and here's our payment. QuickBooks Online does have some different apps that you can use with it. So a lot of times if something new comes out, you'll see this here. They have a bill pay for QuickBooks Online. It's an app that QuickBooks has. If you want to learn more about them, you can certainly go here. And we'll get to their apps a little bit later too, but I just wanted to point out that that's what this notice is here. So from your expenses here, we can print checks, we can pay bills. Again, if you want to do a new transaction, we can enter new bills, expenses, checks, purchase orders, credits, anything from there as well. The next tab over here is your employees, and we'll get into payroll. I'll kind of talk just payroll related information towards the end of the presentation, so that if you're not running payroll or not interested in payroll, you can disregard that last part of it. But this, just be aware, this is where the payroll information is. You've got your employees, and you'll run payroll and do payroll taxes and all that kind of stuff through here. The next section is our report. Now, QuickBooks Online has a lot of different reports, and you can customize them and save them into your customized reports here. But the nice thing about this QuickBooks Online is if you're looking for a specific report, you can kind of type here what you're looking for, and it'll give you some suggestions as to what they think you're looking for. But these are their top recommended reports. Your company snapshot, which again would just be the information that's on your dashboard in graph and form if you like pretty pictures and colors. You've got your balance sheet, your profit and loss, your accounts receivable aging summary, your accounts payable aging summary, and then you've got these expenses by vendor so you can see how much business you've done with each vendor. If you run certain reports a lot, you have this frequently run report. So say you run an accounts payable every week, an accounts payable aging report every week, that report will show up here. So if you frequently run reports, QuickBooks will kind of accumulate those reports and list them in this section for you. Again, if you've customized any reports and saved them, they'd be in this section here. These types of reports is what QuickBooks would think that your management would want to look at. Again, because I'm in the test drive company here, they'll have a lot of tips and tricks come up here. But so you can see your sales performance for this year if you want to view the report, if you want to send it to somebody, if you want to save it as a PDF or copy it, all of those options are here for you. But these are the reports that QuickBooks would think that your management would want to see. And then if you just want to see all of the reports that QuickBooks Online has to offer, they're all going to be listed here. They've kind of got them summarized. So if you want to see a report that is specific to your business, the overview of your business, these are the different reports that QuickBooks thinks would be in that category. You can go back to your all reports. Say you want to see just the different accounts payable reports. Well, we've got a detail, a summary, a bill payment, unpaid list, vendor list, balance list, any list that would be associated with your accounts payable. You can run reports specific to your products and inventory, your accountant reports, what reports does QuickBooks think your accountant wants? Well, they want a balance sheet comparison, profit and loss, your general ledgers, anything in here that QuickBooks would think would be more of an accountant-based report, your trial balance. So if you're looking, and I would suggest, looking at all of the different reports in here so that you kind of have an idea of what reports are there, and if there's a report that you want to be more specific, you can certainly tweak it as you're in it. So let's just take a quick look at, we'll just look at a balance sheet. So here you can customize reports. And it's just telling you that you need to click this Run Report button in order to see changes. There have been plenty of times where I've changed this and then I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, nothing changed. Oh, that's because I didn't click my Run Report. So if you want to change, for example, say a time period, say I only want to look at November. You have to click this Run Report and you'll see it changed. And here's just November's end information. You could compare it to another period. You can change from cash to accrual. You can show non-zero or show active accounts only. You can customize these however you want. Once you've customized the report, and that's the report you want to see all the time, you can save your customization report, and that's where it will show up in my custom report tab in the report section. But just remember that anytime you make a change up here, you just need to click this Run Report in order for the report to refresh. You can email this report from here. You can print it. You can export it. Again, anytime you see a sprocket, you can change different settings. You can sort the report in different orders if you want. You can add notes to the report. If you're going to email it to somebody, you want to say, hey, this is just a draft, or hey, can you look at my long-term liabilities? I'm not really sure that those are right. You can add any of that kind of stuff in here. So there's lots of different things that you can do with reports within the QuickBooks Online. Next, going down here is our taxes. If your business has sales tax, you can turn the sales tax option on and it will track your sales tax. If you have payroll and your payroll is on, you'll have another tab in here that will show payroll taxes. And this is here where you would go to see and pay your payroll or sales tax. You have different options that you can set up with QuickBooks Online, depending on what version or level you have. You can pay the taxes right through QuickBooks Online, or you can still go to your different states or government websites and pay the taxes there, and then just record the payments here. This accounting tab, this is where you're going to see your chart of accounts. And this is also going to be where you would reconcile any bank accounts. And then this My Accountant, if you have QuickBooks Online, you can link with an accountant. Basically, then that accountant, you'd put their email address in here, they'd get an invitation to see your QuickBooks, they'd have their own login, and then they could log into your QuickBooks Online version here, see what you're doing. If you have a question or need them to correct anything, they can just hop in, correct it, hop out. You don't even know that they've done it, but your QuickBooks data file would then be changed. You both can be in there at the same time. So if you're stuck with something and you call them up and say, hey, can you jump into my QuickBooks really quick and I'm trying to do this or this, they can certainly help you with that process. If you have any other questions or anything else that you need to dive into, you can certainly find a pro to help you. QuickBooks has a lot of online tutorials or articles that might help you solve whatever situation it is that you're having. These lines up here with QuickBooks basically just hides that line. If you don't want to navigate through this side panel, you don't have to. If you want a bigger screen, you can do that. If you don't want to navigate through this side panel, that's going to kind of be where I'm going to go next here. It's going to be up on top here. So you've got some different icons up here that we can use. I'm just going to leave this open though so I can show you what is what. This plus sign here, you'll probably use a lot. Anything that you want to do is going to be under this plus sign. If you want to create an invoice for a customer, you can create it here. If you want to receive a payment or a credit memo or delay a charge or do a sales receipt, anything for any activity customer related is going to be in the first column here. And your second column is related to your vendors. If you want to enter a bill or pay a bill or enter an expense to a vendor, get a vendor credit or print your payable checks, you can do all of that right through here. If you have payroll set up, you can enter payroll or do a single time activity or weekly timesheet right through here. If you are just entering in a bank deposit or transferring money, need to put a journal entry in, adjust your inventory, you can do all of that here. All of this is under the plus. So again, if you want to create an invoice, you just click here, takes you right to your invoice. If you want to go to your sales here, sorry, I want to be into my sales here, invoices. You can add an invoice from here. Same thing, takes you to the same place regardless of what you use. This plus here is just a little bit quicker. So if you want to enter a vendor bill, takes you right to your bill. You can put your data in there, or if you go to expenses here, you can enter in bills through here. The next thing here is your magnifying glass, and this is going to be your search. So if you have a dollar amount that you're searching or a vendor, whatever it is that you are searching for, you searched $150 and this is what came up. If you have something a little more specific, you can search, customize your search, whatever it is that you're looking for. You'll see here there's a lot of different options to choose from if you're looking for something specific. So the search button is really good. You'll see this another sprocket up here. This is kind of your main sprocket or your main setup section, I guess I'll call it. And we'll just kind of go through each one of these. So here's your company, your account and settings. So this is going to be your company information here. Company type, your contact information, your address, and how you would prefer to communicate with QuickBooks Online. If you have questions or billing or whatever. All of these pencils, you can go in and edit each one of these categories. If you have questions, you can mark here. Once you've got all this where you want, you're done. Takes you all the way out. If you want to manage users, like I had mentioned earlier, you can have different people have their own logins for QuickBooks Online, and then you can restrict them to certain areas. So if you have somebody that just works on accounts payable, you can set them up to have access just to the expenses portion, your vendor side of things. Or if you have somebody that just handles your payroll, you can set them up then to just to have access to the payroll portion of the QuickBooks Online. And then if you have invited an accountant to also be able to help you with your QuickBooks, their information would be listed down here. So this is how you would invite an accountant. So you would invite somebody, it walks you right through. No, I'm going to get rid of that. Oh, I can't get rid of him. Oh my gosh. I'm not sure how to get rid of the screen on here. Well, we'll just cheat, I guess. Sorry about that. So that's how you would manage your users and invite an accountant again under your sprocket. Anybody who is listed here or who has access to the QuickBooks file would be listed here. Whether they're a billable user, the status of their rights, I guess, if you will. You can change all of that in here. Next under our sprocket then is you can customize form styles. So if you have a specific layout of your invoices that you use to your customers, you can certainly send something up here, and then it would use that customized form for all of your invoices that you're sending to your customers. You get to your chart of accounts also through your sprocket here. You see your chart of accounts. We've got a checking account. It's a bank account type. Our detail is checking, and it gives you your balances. You can view the register from here. You can edit your account from here. So say you want to call this state bank checking. If you're going to have, maybe a couple of different bank accounts, you want to be able to keep them separate. You'll see it says state bank checking. The delete option here in QuickBooks Online, it says delete on here, and when you click delete, it will take things away from your list. However, you're really just truly making them inactive, so you're never really losing any data, which is nice, in case you accidentally delete something. But you can view your register. It takes you right back then to your checking register from here. You can see different accounts from here. So let's go to, let's look at our fixed asset here, our truck. We've got one truck here for $13,495. So you can kind of jump around from here. You can go back to your chart of accounts from here. So this is going to be all of your chart of accounts. You can run reports. So you can run like a labor report from here. Again, you can edit the account or delete or make the account inactive from here. This QuickBooks Lab, this is kind of where I was talking about the different apps that QuickBooks has. They have different things here you can check out and see if any of these would be beneficial to your specific company. You can see demos, you can give feedback. It's just kind of a thing that Intuit is putting into their online version to help streamline things. All right, so that's basically our company under our sprocket. So the next column here is the list. We can look at all of our lists. Again, chart of accounts, we've got payment methods, we've got lots of different lists in here. Or again, you can go reports. And all of those same lists are in our reports here. Your products and services, again, these are our item lists. We kind of went through this earlier. You can get to them here. And because I went to my sprocket and list products and services, you'll see here it's highlighted. This other way to get there would be under my sales, and this products and services. It's got the green lines by them. That's the other way or navigation route to get to the same section. You can set up recurring transactions in QuickBooks Online. So again, if you have that monthly telephone bill that comes through every month, instead of entering it every month, you can just put it in here once and say, yep, okay, let's do this every month so I don't have to think about it. You can edit it from here. You have different templates. You can do a new one from here. You can adjust your reminder list. So when you log into QuickBooks, maybe 5 days before this transaction is going to happen, QuickBooks will give you a message that says, hey, FYI, your cell phone bill is going to come out in 5 days. Perfect. You kind of have then a mental note of what's going to be happening. There's also attachments that you can use in QuickBooks if you want to attach, say, your insurance agent sent you an email that, hey, your insurance premium is going to go down, and you want to save that email just as a kind of a backup or a nice audit trail for you. You can save that email, attach it in here, and you'll see all of the different attachments that you've saved. There's different tools in QuickBooks. You can import or export data. Here's where you would reconcile your bank account. There are some budgeting options. You have your audit log, and you can order checks through on QuickBooks Online. And then this is kind of your profile. So this would be your user profile. You know, if you want to change your password or anything, you've got all of this information here. Oh, now I got the screen up that I can't get away again. I don't know why this is such a pain. Okay, there we go. So if you want to change your profile, that's where you would go. If you want to give feedback to Intuit, you can certainly give them feedback. They like feedback. Or you're done working in QuickBooks and you want to sign out, it's also under your sprocket here. If you do have any questions, they have this, oh, I don't know, I'm going to call it a file room, if you will, where they save other people's questions. So if you have, you know, something specific and if it's in there, you can search here. But if you need some more specific help, you can contact Intuit. You can find an accountant here. You can add your accountant here. When you contact QuickBooks, there's a couple of different things. You can do an online chat with them, or this is kind of different how you can contact them directly. All right, so this is just a really basic overview of the QuickBooks Online, just kind of where things are at and how they work. I'm going to take just a short, probably maybe a 10-minute break here. And then when we come back, we'll jump in and we'll start like working in QuickBooks and showing you how to record different transactions. If anybody has any questions in the meantime, please feel free to let me know. We'll see you back here in about 10 minutes. All righty, we'll get back at it here. I do see I have a question here regarding the bank feed and the matching or adding that we talked about initially. So the question is, if the match, if it's already in the register, will this make the transaction or deposit listed in the bank feed go away? After they connected their QuickBooks Online to the bank account, they didn't realize that it does also add the checks written. So they have all these items in their bank feed. They didn't want to delete them because they didn't want to lose any important information. So yes, that is correct. You can do a couple of different things to make those items go away. If you match them, you'll get that cleared option in your register with the bank feed, this here. If you just match them up and it'll throw them in there if you've already got them in there. Or the other option that you can do is if, say you've already got these in here and you just don't care about them, you don't want to match them, you want these to go away. Under these batch actions, you can exclude all of these ones selected and they just go away from your bank feed. They're still going to be in your QuickBooks register. They're just off of the bank feed here. The only thing now is if you go into your register, if this was one of the transactions, you don't have that cleared, that it was brought in from the bank feed message here. You'd have to go in when you do your monthly bank rec and actually clear that check. But that is two different ways then to get the information out of your bank feed here. Then you can go to this excluded here and see that I just excluded those 3 transactions. And if you're like, oh, I didn't mean to exclude this, you can undo him. And he's back under your review and you can match them or add them or make a change or whatever it is that you want to do. And then these are all the ones that went into our QuickBooks. So if you accidentally add something into your QuickBooks, added it through your bank feed and you didn't mean to do that, you can go in QuickBooks in the middle here and undo any of the transactions that you just did. Undo is successful. It goes back into your review. I meant to exclude that one. So hopefully that answers your question. So like I had mentioned before we went to break, now what I want to do, now that we kind of have an overview of everything that's in here, I just kind of want to go into actually working in the QuickBooks. So I'll just kind of, again, just start at the top and kind of go through. So in banking, this is our checkbook register. So this, just like old time in our actual checkbooks, our registers here, charge, payments, balance, all that good stuff. But say you just want to write a check. I am going to write a check to Hicks Hardware. I went to the hardware store today. I bought a bunch of stuff. My check number that I'm using is going to be check number 5000. Here's my date. Here's the bank account that I'm using. I got some supplies from them today. I bought, let's see, what did I buy today? We'll buy some light bulbs. And we bought some really expensive light bulbs. So here I can say, yep, I can opt if this $500 worth of light bulbs, I'm going to bill it to a different customer. And if it's taxable or who my customer is, I'm just going to say that these are mine for my own personal use here in the office. So I'm going to save and new. So now you'll see here that that check 5000 was saved. It's now in my register. It automatically goes to my next check number. I went back there because I forgot that I needed some cleaner. So you'll see here though that it brought up the last transaction that I did with them. Even though it's a new check number, it automatically brings up the last transaction. But this time I'm going to use some office expense. we're going to say I bought, we'll buy some paper towels for $100. Those aren't quite as nice as our light bulbs. So if we save and do that, again, our check is saved, takes us to our next check number. You can X out of your enter check screen here, takes you back into your register. Right now we're looking at our MasterCard, but I actually wrote check, so I want to go to our bank account. I changed the name, that's right, State Bank. Where am I? Was it? Oh, there it is. All right, so you'll see here my 2 checks that I wrote. Oops, those aren't it. They are it. So there's my light bulbs. All right, so I was just looking at this. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I thought I wrote my check here for $500, but it's telling me my check was for $728.75. So I went back into my check and looked here that I have some item details here. So previously to me writing my check for my light bulb, the last transaction or the last check that was written to Hicks Hardware also had some item detail down here. So I want to delete these things because my check was really just for the $500. So here we go, check total $500. Sorry about that. And I think the same thing probably happened with my paper towels. We're just going into edit. Here's my paper towels. Down here's that item detail from the previous transactions. So I'm just going to delete these. And again, you can save and close here. Oops. Takes you back to your check register. So now here's the check for the $100 for my paper towels and the $500 for my light bulb. Let's shorten this guy up so you can see the balance here, the checking account. So that's basically how you just write a check if you're just going, you know, to the post office or wherever and writing a check for supplies or whatever it is that you're doing. If you want to make a deposit, say you got a check in the mail from your insurance company, you overpaid them. So you're going to go to bank deposit. Now here in the bank deposit, we have this information is coming up because we have received some payments that haven't been deposited yet. If I wanted to deposit these in with my insurance check refund, I would just select them here. But I'm just going to add a new, I don't want to use these yet. We'll get to those in a minute here. So we're just going to say we got a refund check from MetLife Dental, and we're just going to code it back to our insurance expense, and we're going to say refund of premium for $250. Oops, sorry, I'm under method here, $250. So here's our new total deposit, $250. It's going to go into our state bank checking account. If we were going to get cash back or any other memos, you can put a memo over here. But here's our total deposit. If you wanted to attach a copy of the letter that you got with your check, you could attach it here for an audit trail to show why we got this refund of premium. So you can save a new here, and it tells you that your bank deposit was saved. Our undeposited funds transactions are still showing here. And if we go to our register, we'll see our deposit here. $250 from MetLife to insurance. So that's how you would just add a general deposit. All right, so let's go down now to sales. So we'll talk about our customers, invoicing customers, and receiving payments from customers. So let's do it with just a brand new blank invoice. Again, you can go here and click New Invoice, or you can go to your plus and do a new invoice from here. They both take you to the blank invoice. So if we choose a customer, Cool Cars, all of their information, terms, everything will automatically populate. If this is going to be a new customer, you can also enter the customer on the fly. So I typed in Beth Kirchner. Well, it's a new customer. Do I want to add this? Do I want to put any other details in for me? I can certainly add as much or as little information as I want in here. If I want to display something different on a check, I can do that here. Address, you can add notes about this customer, their tax information, if they're an exempt customer, how they prefer to pay you. I always like cash. Cash is king in my world, so we'll put cash there. If you have terms for this customer, you'll enter them in here. Again, if you have any attachments, maybe you have like a business card or something that you want to attach to this particular customer, you can add it in here. If you want to, if this customer wants their invoices emailed to them, you can enter in an email. Or contact information, website, save. So now we have Beth Kirchner now set up as a customer. You'll see all of my information flowed through. And let's see, we'll do some gardening for Beth. I don't have a green thumb, so I'll often have to hire it out. But they're going to do some weekly gardening service for me. They're going to do, we'll say, 5 hours at $50 an hour. So the total of my invoice is going to be $250. Subtotal, if it's taxed, if I click tax here, it's going to calculate the tax code here. If I say that this item is not taxable, you'll see then that the tax goes to 0. If there's a discount percent or a discount value, you can add it in here. So they're giving me 2% off because I'm a new customer. So I get $5 off. So my bill is now $245. You can put a message at the bottom of your invoices if you want. This is their default. This will show up on all of them. If you want to put a different message for different customers, you can certainly set that up. If you need to add more lines to your invoice, you can add more lines. If you've typed in a bunch of stuff and you realize that you're doing something incorrect or you want to change something, you can clear all of your lines. You can add the subtotal in. You can delete just a line by line through here. So we'll just add a second service here. Let's see, what do we got here? We'll do some pest control. So they did an hour of pest control. Now pest control already has a rate set up, so it was $35 an hour. The total is $35. You'll see my subtotal went up. Again, it's not taxable, so there's no tax sitting here. The discount percent already changed for being a new customer. And we can save and close this invoice here now. Or if you click here, you can save and do new. I can save and send this email to that customer. So I would email it. Or you can go in, print and preview it. You can make it reoccurring from here. You can customize the layout of it from here if you want to do any more customization for this particular customer. So right now for today, we're just going to do save and new. Tells you that it was saved, brings up a blank invoice. You can exit out of this invoice right here. So now if we go to customers, here's Beth Kirchner. I've got an outstanding or an open balance here of $279.30. So your options here, what do you want to do next? We're going to receive a payment. We're going to send a reminder to Beth saying, hey, you still got this outstanding. We can create a monthly statement. We can do another new invoice, an estimate, or a sales receipt, whatever you want to do from there. You can do from here or also from our plus. all of those same options are up here. All right, so let's say that I didn't really want that hour of pest control in there, so I call them up and I say, hey, you guys invoice me for an hour of pest control. I didn't want it, it didn't happen. You're like, okay, well, we'll just take it off your invoice. We'll send you a credit for that. So here under our customers, we're going to do a credit memo, and we're going to do it for Beth. And we're going to do it for the pest control, the $35, not taxable. So see now my total credit here, oh, it's very touchy, of $35. But now they gave me that 2% discount, so they're going to refund that as well. So I only get $34.30 off. Again, you can print preview, you can save and send, you can save and close, save and new, all those options right down here. So we're just going to save and close that. So now if you look at my customer section here, you'll see that the open balance is only $245. So a few days pass and you get a check in the mail from Beth Kirchner for $245. Now we're going to receive this payment. So you receive the payment. It comes up here, Beth Kirchner. It will list all of the open invoices that this customer has. But this person only has one, so we're only paying the one. If they made a partial payment, say I only send in a check for $200, not 20, 200. You can change it here, amount received here or here, and then it will know that the original amount, open balance, and it will leave that additional $45 is still due. But we'll just pay the whole thing. All right, so it's automatically using that credit. You don't have to do anything to say, okay, apply that credit to this invoice, because my original amount was $279. That included the landscaping and the pest control. But then the open balance is only $245 because it's already taking that credit off of my balance. So there's kind of saves you a step there. There's nothing you really need to do. If, for example, I would have paid this invoice in full before I realized that that the credit should have been on my account, you'll see here that and now it's giving me a credit, amount of credit. The payment, I'm paying this invoice in full at $245, even though the amount received was $279, so it's leaving this credit here of $34.30. And that credit then would just stay on the account, or you can cut the customer check for the difference. But again, we'll just leave this at $245, so we'll clear this all up. I'm going to save and close. So now you'll see Beth Kirchner has a 0 open balance. So now we've received that payment. Now I want to take it to the bank. So I'm going to go back to here. I'm going to make my bank deposit. And you'll see now here's the cash of $245 that I received. So I'm going to take all of these and deposit them. So here's my total deposit. It's going to State Bank today. If you had additional deposits that you wanted to add, you certainly can do that here. If you want to do any attachments or memos, you want to cash back, your own cash back, but we're just going to deposit all of that in the bank. I'm going to say save and close. Now, if I go to my banking and look at my register, in my bank account, not my credit card, you'll see the 2 checks that I wrote to Hicks Hardware, and here's the deposits that I made today, the refund check from the insurance, and then the customer checks that I just deposited as well. So that's kind of how you would then invoice, do credits, and receive payments. Got a couple questions here I just want to read here for a second. Give me 1 minute. All right, that one we answered. Do we need to add travelers? Yes. So it's asking, do you have to add the deposit? If we took the deposit to the bank, QuickBooks would see the deposit and let us add it to the books, correct? And that is correct. I'll get rid of this now. Okay, so yes. So if I say I did not click on my bank deposit, choose all of those customer payments and actually make the deposit this way, when the bank fee comes over then and it is telling me, hey, on 12/1, you had a deposit for this amount, what do you want to do with it? Do you want to add it? Do you want to match it? What do you want to do? When you double click on that deposit, you will then see all of your received payments from customers that have not been deposited yet. So then I could pick those 4 customers' payments that are received to total that amount of my deposit and record my deposit that way. So that's another way of entering in your deposit. You just have to make sure that you have received the payments from those customers, and then you can match up the deposit with the received payment. Good question. All right. Okay. Any other questions on customers invoicing, receiving payments or deposits? Again, if you do, just go ahead. When I see it here, I will answer it. But if you have a company where a customer can just walk in the door and buy an item, pay for it right then and there, and leave with it, you can do a sales receipt here versus an actual invoice to the customer. So if I came in, I'm going to write you a check this time. And the check number that I wrote you was that. And let's see, what do I want to buy here? I'll buy some concrete. And I'm just going to buy concrete. So Beth came in, she's going to buy some concrete. She's going to buy 1 bag of it at $75. I'm writing you a check for $81. This is the check number that you're receiving. It's going to undeposited funds. Oh, I didn't want to send it. Here's where you could email me the sales receipt, but I meant to do a save and close. So now that sale has been recorded. The $80 is in my undeposited funds. So again, I can either go here to make my bank deposit and choose my $81, or when I actually take that $81 to my bank, the bank deposits my check. Your bank fee comes over the next day. You'll see here that you have a deposit of $81. What do you want to do with it? You can link it to that received payment from that customer and record your deposit that way. Okay, so I want to now move on to our accounts payable side of things. So again, in your expenses here, you've got your vendors and your expenses, or up here in our plus, we've got the different actions that we can do with our vendors. So I want to just I'm going to jump down here to a bill. I'm going to enter in a bill. You can use your drop-down arrow to find a vendor, or you can just start typing in a name. If you have terms set up with this vendor, they'd automatically populate in here. I don't have any terms set up, so it just defaults to due upon receipt. Their bill number on my invoice was this. Oops, I didn't mean to put that plus in there. Fingers are getting happy. So we got a bill from Fidelity. And we're going to say it was for some work comp insurance. We're going to say the policy period. You can put description in here if you want. You don't have to. We can say it's June 2017 through May 2018 for $15,000. Again, if you're going to bill this out to a customer, you could enter this here, or if it's just a regular in-house expense, you can tab through these boxes. It takes you back to the next line. You can click on the next line. It'll drop you down there. If you want to delete a line here, add lines, clear lines, same thing basically as the customer side of things. So we've added now a bill from Fidelity for some insurance for $15,500. If you want to put a memo down here, we can save a new, take us to a new bill. Again, this is saying, hey, we've got a new app out here that will help save time. You want to try it out? You can learn more. I'm just going to say no thanks for today. And you can enter in a bill. So every day when you get your mail, you can enter in your bills this way. And if you go back to your vendors, again, if we find Fidelity, you'll see now that they have an open balance. So you can make your payment to Fidelity from here, or if you're going to pay bills, you can pay them through here. If we pay bills through here, it's going to list every bill that you have open. So you can, we're going to write checks for these. We're going to start with check 5002. We're just going to print them later, but I'm going to pay this bill, and I'll pay this bill, and I'm going to pay this bill. So right now it's telling me I have 3 bills selected to pay. Here's the total that I'm going to pay. So this is how much I have outstanding, but this is how much I'm going to pay. So my new accounts payable balance is going to be $2,100, which is fine. Again, you can click your sprocket here to see more rows if you have a bunch of bills out there or not. It's telling you that you have, hey, red exclamation point, something's wrong here. Not wrong, but something needs your immediate attention. We've got these 4 bills that are overdue. Yep, I'm well aware that they are overdue. And you can either save and print your checks from here, or you can just save and close and print the checks at a later time. Again, you got a new app. No, thank you. So now you'll see our accounts payable list kind of went down because we just paid some bills. So now that's kind of how you pay bills. If you're in your vendor list here and you just want to make a payment to this particular vendor, if you go to make the payment from this location, you only see that vendor's open invoices. Whereas if I went to my plus option up here and clicked paid bills, it showed all of the vendors, all of the bills that I had open. So if you're looking for just a specific vendor, you can certainly go into the vendor list here to pay that bill. But now we got this Fidelity bill, and they came back and said, oh my gosh, we way overcharged you. We're going to send you a credit. Awesome. So we're going to go into our vendors, and we are going to do this vendor credit. So we got the credit in the mail from Fidelity. Oops. Fidelity. And their credit memo number. And we're going to put it back just to insurance, work comp insurance. And they overcharged us a lot, $8,200. So we've got our credit now, vendor credit entered. Save and close. So we go back and look at Fidelity now. You'll see the balance due is only $7,300 now that they have that credit on there. So if we make a payment here, it's only going to show us the Fidelity that we have outstanding. And you'll see here the bill, the original amount was $15,500. And then down here is our credit of $8,200. So it's bringing our amount due to $7,300. If we didn't want to use this credit right now, you can certainly uncheck that. And now this little side window will pop up saying, hey, you got these open. Do you want to add it to what you're doing, or do you just want to leave it alone? I'm just going to leave this one alone for right now. And I'm just going to pay $1,000. Zero short today. So I'm just going to pay $1,000, save and close. So now if we look at Fidelity, you'll see now my balance is $6,300. We go in to make a payment here. Again, it's got my bill, got my $15,500. It shows that I already paid $1,000. And again, it's got my credit back down here. So now I'm like, okay, yep, I want to use my credit. The total that I owe is $6,300. I'm going to write this check for it. Save and close. Fidelity should now have a zero balance. So QuickBooks knows what, by clicking on that, make a payment, it knows what you're trying to do. So it saves you a lot of clicks, it saves a lot of data entry. It was already all in there for me, as you could see. I didn't have to change or do anything. It knew my next check number. It knew the check was going to be for the total amount of whatever was outstanding. It was paying that bill. It was using my credit. I just basically clicked create a payment. That screen popped up. I saved and closed, and I was done with that transaction. So again, if we go to our checking account register, here are all the bills, the first batch that I wanted to pay, and you'll see here it says to print because I opted to print them at a later date. And then here are my checks to Fidelity that I actually wrote out, and again, my bank balance. The difference between a bill and an expense, a bill would be, like I said, if you got a bill in the mail from them. An expense would be, so I went to Walmart and ordered and picked up some ink for my printer. So Walmart is not a current vendor, so I'm just going to add it. You can add details to the vendor if you want, but all QuickBooks really requires is a name, so I'm just going to save them. And I'm going to have this come out of my checking account again today. I'm going to use cash. And I spent $50 on ink today. Again, if I'm going to bill this to a customer, I can do that from here. But I'm just an in-house expense. I'm going to leave it at here. So we've got an expense to Walmart. I used cash. I paid $50. There's not really there's no check number. There's no bill for this. It's basically just a cash receipt. So I'm going to save and close. And now here is my expense to Walmart for $50. So a lot of times what I will do is if I'm using a debit card, I'll enter my debit card transactions just as expenses because there's not a check number associated with it or an invoice or anything like that, but it is still coming out of my checking account. So those are just listed as expenses. You can do purchase orders through here. Credit card credits, if you return something on a credit card, you've got this. And then here's where I would go to print those 3 checks that I had opted to print. But since I don't have a printer up, I'm just going to ignore this. But that's where you would go to print. Any questions about vendors, vendor credit, bills, expenses, how to pay, any of that? And here's our customer list. Everything we can do with customers, everything we do with vendors. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about here is going to be employees and payroll related. So if you're not using payroll or if you're not interested in payroll, you can certainly drop the webinar. I won't be offended, but we're just going to talk more about how to set up employees, how to set up payroll taxes, and all that good stuff. So before I jump into the employee portion of the webinar, I'm just going to take let's just take a short break, like a 5-minute break. Just need to refresh my coffee, and I'll be right back with you in about 5 minutes. All righty, let's get back and tackle this payroll section, and then I will let everybody enjoy the rest of their Friday. If you've ever worked with payroll, I will say the one, I don't want to call it a downfall or a con with the QuickBooks Online payroll versus a desktop payroll or maybe some other software's payrolls is the QuickBooks Online version with payroll is very, I'm going to say rigid. There's not a lot of manipulation to the payroll. I mean, it still does everything you need it to do. It's just if you, say you are running a payroll and whatever, you pay Beth 40 hours at $10 an hour. And as you're running it, you realize, oh, I was supposed to give her a raise this week. You have to kind of go all the way back out, make your change to your employee, and then go back in and kind of start over. You can't really change things with payroll on the fly like you can do in the desktop version or like in your customers or vendors section of the QuickBooks Online. So that's kind of the only real big drawback with the online QuickBooks payroll. But like I had said, essentially it still does everything we need it to do. So with that being said, we've got our employees section here on the side. We can set up the payroll, create the paychecks, and get your paychecks done. So it says, need to pay your employees, let's get started. But before I do that, I just want to set up some stuff. So I'm going to add an employee. Okay, so here's my employee list that I have right now. I've got 3 employees. They're all active. 2 are on direct deposit, 1 gets a regular check, and here's the rates that we pay them. You can sort your list here, inactive employees, all employees. It'll tell you that you've got some missing information here and they're not on your payroll. So here we're going to, they also have this payroll year-end guide, which is kind of nice. This shows up towards the end of the year, kind of gives you an outline or a guideline of what you need to get your end of year stuff wrapped up. But like I said, I'm going to add an employee. So here's our employee information. So you enter in their name, and then you go, it wants you to jump right into their W-4 information, because basically their W-4 information gives you most of the stuff that you need. So we'll enter in her social security number, her home address. Oops. This particular sample company is in California, so we'll just leave her in California. Oh, this is telling me that my zip code is, QuickBooks is actually really, the online version is way more smarter than the desktop version. So it knows that that zip code does not correspond with a La Crosse, California. So I can't leave her in California. I'm gonna have to put her back in Wisconsin. We don't have any snow yet, so that's good. Otherwise, QuickBooks won't let me proceed. So you'll see I've corrected that, so my message went away. Well, we'll say she's married. She's got 2 exemptions, and she wants $10 extra federal withholding. So then you've got your state section here. We're going to say she's married to I don't know, it's not letting me change that. All right. So this is, like I said, this sample company is in California. So California, each state has their own withholding rules and forms and stuff. So California, it must be different than Wisconsin. I don't know anything about California payroll, but Wisconsin, when your business is in Wisconsin, your employee lives in Wisconsin, you fill out this W-4 information. QuickBooks Online assumes that your Wisconsin withholding is the same as your federal. They're usually the same. If for some reason you need to change, if they want something different withheld for the state, say she only wants one allowance, you can change it in here, but the default is that it's going to be the same as your federal. Now we're done with our W-4 information. You just click down here in the bottom corner. Oops, my Social Security number wasn't right. Must know that that's not a real Social Security number. There we go. All right. So now it goes into, okay, so we've got Lori now as our new employee. What are her withholdings? She's filing married with 2 allowances. We filled that out from the W-4, but if you find here that you need to make a change or have an error, you can always click on your pencil and it will take you back into your W-4 section. You can close it up here. Oops, I'm sorry, that closed the entire process. So you can change your withholdings here. Then it wants to know how often do we pay Lori. Well, we pay her, we're going to add a new one. We're going to pay her every other week. So we're going to pay her every other week. The next payday, we'll just say it's today. The last payroll was on the 29th, and she gets paid every other Friday. Use the schedule for employees you add after Lori. So if you are going to add a bunch of other employees, you can leave this. If she's the only one, you can uncheck mark it here. We'll say that's our new payroll schedule. So you'll see her every other Friday starting today. We want to pay her hourly. We're going to pay her $15 an hour. Now we're also going to add some additional pay types here for her. So she'll get overtime. She'll get vacation. There's no vacation policy. Well, we'll make one. So she currently has 40 hours available for vacation pay. And we'll pay her a bonus because she's a great employee of ours. So there's even more ways to pay Lori that aren't so common. If you have tips, clergy, S-Corp health insurance, kind of the random weird stuff is in here. And they do have an other earnings for kind of the catch-all for everything else. But we're going to say Lori doesn't have any of that. So we're going to be done with her pay rate or her pay types. And now number 4 here, does Lori have any deductions? For example, retirement, health care. Click on your pencil, we can edit. We'll say she has a garnishment. We'll say it's a federal tax levy, because even though she's a great employee, she's not very good with her finances. So we are going to put in the description that it's going to show her on her pay stub. So we'll just call it the same, federal tax levy. And all right, and we're going to pay Lori with a paper check. So we got our hourly with our additional pay types. We've got our tax levy, and we've got a paper check here. So this side over here, it's a sample check. If she were to work 80 hours, here's her hourly, her tax levy. or check's only $85. So that's how you set up a new employee. So now you'll see here, there's no yellow exclamation point, nothing's missing. We've got her at $15 an hour every other Friday. She's getting a check. She's an active employee. If anything ever changes with her, here's your employee. So I double clicked on the employee. Here's her employment section. She's active. If you give your employees ID numbers, you can certainly use them up here, whatever you use. But here you can say if her status changes. Have you filled out a new hire report with the state? Do you have a completed I-9 in your file? When did she start working? Her birthday. And then if you do have different work locations, you can say which location she works at. And if you track your work comp in here, you can say what work comp class that this particular employee belongs to as well. So that's the employment section. And then in the middle here, you have a profile section. And this again is just information for your own records. You know, you can put her email on here, phone numbers, gender, any notes that you want, that kind of thing. So now we've got Lori all set up to be paid every other Friday. So now, since the payroll is today, we want to run a payroll. You can run a bonus payroll batch only, or you can just run your regular payroll from here. So now because we have two different schedules set up, it's asking us which one we want to do. Well, we want the every other Friday pay schedule. Okay, so we do now. QuickBooks is saying before you can pay her, you need to set up these state taxes. So there's something missing in Wisconsin. So here's our taxes tab. You'll notice before it was only sales tax up here, but now we also have our payroll tax section. Here's where you would file your payroll forms, which we'll get into in a minute here. But I want to edit my tax setup because something's missing for Wisconsin. We're going to say we pay them monthly. And our student rate will be 3.5%. So, apparently I can't use their same number. So now we've got our account numbers set up in here, so we should be good to go. And we're going to go back to our employees, run my payroll every other Friday. Okay, so here's Lori. So we have our regular hours, overtime hours, vacation hours, and if she's getting a bonus, we can put any memos in here. So we'll say she worked 80 hours with 4 hours of overtime. She's not taking any vacation, but we'll give her a $250 bonus for some extra good client feedback that she got. I'm just going to say, great job. So then you'll see here the total of her payroll check. You can add another employee here if you'd like. She's the only one we have set up on this pay schedule, so I'm just going to leave her. But we want this to come out of our state bank checking account, not our savings account. Shows you your paid period and the paid date. So if you've got everything in here, you know, if you've got multiple employees, it gives you your totals on the bottom. So yep, you've got everything entered how you want it. The next step is you need to preview the payroll before you actually finalize it. So when you're previewing the payroll, it kind of tells you right here a summary of it. So we've got $1,720.95 of total payroll cost. The check is going to be $85. This is the employee portion of the deductions, and this is the employer portion of the deduction. So we have one check for $85 on 12/1. And it's such a little amount because I made her federal tax levy huge. So she, like I mentioned before, is terrible with her money, so it's all going back to the government. If you want now from here, you can edit this pencil and change your hours, but that's all you can change. So how I was saying earlier, like if she was supposed to get a pay raise and we forgot to enter it, we'd have to cancel this out, go back into the employee profile, change her pay rate there, and then run the payroll again. Whereas in other payroll softwares, you would just be able to change this to $16 an hour and move on. So QuickBooks Online Payroll is a little more rigid in that regard. You can't change things really on the fly. All right, so everything here looks good. We're going to say okay. So down here now we're going to submit our payroll. Once we've got everything where we want it to be, we can submit our payroll. Or if we want to verify something else, we can save it for later, come back to it, and finish the process. Well, we'll just submit it. Now it's telling us, okay, you've got one paycheck to print. It's going to be dated on 12/1. This is the check, this is the net pay, and we're going to use check number 6,000. And you can print your paychecks from here. Okay. Once your paychecks are printed, then you can finish your payroll. And now it's saying, hey, you've got some payroll tax payments due. Do you want to do this now or do you want to do it later? So you can review and pay them from here. I'm going to opt to do it later. So once you have your payroll checks all printed, if you go into your report section here, enter this managed payroll, you've got this payroll summary report, which will show you the last pay date, all the employees that got paid, check date, name, net amount, hours, taxes, gives you everything you need to know about this particular paycheck. Under the share here, you can export it to Excel or you can print the report from here. Your print button is right in the middle. This payroll tax liability report is also very helpful when you're running payroll because now it's telling us the last pay date. It's telling us all the taxes are due. So this is the California tax. We haven't paid any of it yet, so we still owe it all. Here's the California unemployment. Here's your federal FICA, Social Security, Medicare, and federal withholding taxes due. You've got your federal unemployment tax. And then you've got your Wisconsin income tax. So this is a nice report to print after your payrolls so that you know what taxes are due. And okay, so talking about taxes under our payroll tax, now here's telling us too that we have some taxes due. You have your federal 941 tax, California taxes, but in your tax setup here, if you're starting payroll for the very first time, when you turn on the payroll, it will walk you through each one of these tabs so you can get all of your information entered. So here's your company name and address, your EIN. You'll choose what kind of 941 filer you are, whether you're semi-weekly, monthly, quarterly, so on and so forth. It then will also ask you to enter your state tax information. Like I did earlier, if you click on any of the blue, it will take you in and you can make any adjustments at that time. So for example, at the end of the year, when your SUTA rate changes, you can go into this taxes, tax setup overview for Wisconsin, change your SUTA rate for January of 2018. You have pay policies here that you can go to. This is where I set up those pay schedules. So if you want to set up a new one, you can do it. Or if you want to edit something, your vacation and sick leave policies are in here if you want to edit those. You've got your deductions in here. So we've got the different deductions that we have set up currently. If you need to add more garnishments. And this would be more of a global, or the garnishment that would be available for all of the employees. Whereas when I set up the federal tax levy, that was specifically just for Lori. And then you have some preferences here too. How if you want to email employees payment stubs, if you want to print different, maybe you print your paychecks to a different printer, those sorts of things. But this electronic services section here, I just kind of want to talk about real briefly, because like I'd mentioned earlier, you can actually file and pay your payroll taxes right through Intuit or right through the QuickBooks Online. And this here is where you'd want to set all of that up. They're very easy step-by-step instructions. You just need to have the appropriate account numbers and PIN numbers and passwords and all that kind of good stuff in here. The one thing that I do want to mention is if you are making your tax payments through QuickBooks, if anything changes with a bank account number, or a bank changes their routing number, you just need to make sure you get that updated in your QuickBooks file as soon as possible. Otherwise, you might have a little hiccup when it comes to making your payroll tax payments as well. So they've got all the information in here for you. Again, it's under taxes, tax setup, electronic services. Alrighty. Under this taxes here, you can view that same payroll tax liability report that we were just talking about. You can view your tax payments that you've already made. You can enter prior tax history. You would use that if you are picking up, starting your payroll through QuickBooks, maybe in the middle of the year, and you've had previous payrolls in 2017, you would put your prior tax history in there. And again, this here is where you would find all of your forms, your quarterly payroll forms, your annual forms, forms that you might need for employee setup or employer setup are in here. You can view archived forms. So if you are looking for a past quarter, just to see how something was filed, you can look there. But it gives you all the quarterly forms. So you'll see here the federal 941, you've got some California forms, then you've got your Wisconsin unemployment forms, and those are a quarterly form as well. Again, you can view archives from here as well. Go back to your payroll tax center. If you want to pay your taxes, then record the payments, you can just go in here, create a payment. We'll create this 941 payment. And here it's going to say, okay, are you going to pay it electronically right through QuickBooks here, or are you just going to make the payment yourself? I'm going to say I'm going to make the payment myself. So by saying this, I'm actually just recording the payment in QuickBooks. I still need to go to the EFTPS website and actually make my payment with the government in order for that payment to be paid timely. So when I'm doing this, make my payment myself, I can choose the date, earliest, or another. So if you're paying this, since I'm paying this one late because it was actually due on the 29th, it's just going to default to today. But if this payment wasn't actually due until December 15th, you would have an option here. You'd have the earliest, which would be today. You'd have the latest, which would be the 15th, and it would just default to that. Here's your bank account it's coming out of. It already breaks out the payments for you. You can put a check number in here. It's optional since it's going to be an ACH payment. You can put some notes in here. And then you can just record your payment. And now that payment is just in our check register. At this point, there aren't really any forms to print just the EFTPS, so we can just skip that for now, and it'll just take us back to our taxes. Now you'll see that one payment has disappeared. If you have upcoming payments, You don't need to pay those yet. QuickBooks does send you a reminder when you log in that you got some, payroll taxes that are due coming up. But if they are in red, that means we've missed it or it's late. Oh, I see I have a question here. Is there still a problem adjusting the quarter Minnesota unemployment tax rate? I'm assuming you're talking about because Minnesota rounds their unemployment tax. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. To be honest with you, I haven't run a lot of Minnesota with unemployment through here. I would think that because let's see what happens here. I'm just going to add another employee here real quick. Oh, the name already exists. I'm sorry. Giving me an error message. It still works the same as a desktop where you can't have the same name be a customer, a vendor, or an employee. They all have to be slightly different. Oh, sorry, county here. We're in the Crescent, Minnesota is in Houston County. So we're going to say single, zero, Minnesota. My withholding is usually the same. Wow, that's really amazing. QuickBooks knows everything. I must have hit the exact same numbers the last time. Okay, so now it wants to know how I want to pay me. We'll do every other Friday. I'm going to make $25 an hour with a paper check. Okay, so now I'm going to run my payroll every other Friday. Okay, so now I have to set up my Minnesota tax. We'll say we deposit them monthly. And we'll say this is at a 5% rate. Oh, wait, the Minnesota workforce development rate is the 0.10, and then if you have a loan interest assessment rate, would go here, which we don't. So let's say okay. Now what it's telling me? Oh, I'm missing a number. Okay, let's try this one more time. Sorry about all that. So we're going to run my payroll every other Friday for Beth, who lives in Minnesota, for 80 hours. Preview. Yep, that looks right. I'm going to submit the payroll. print my check, and finish. We'll do this later. So now if I go back and look at that payroll tax summary, or payroll tax liability, excuse me. So my last pay date, we should have some Minnesota stuff on here now. Here's my Minnesota income tax. No SUDA though. I'm wondering if it's just not doing that for me in the sample company. Typically when you run that payroll tax liability, it will show your unemployment tax that's due on there as well. If you want to leave me your email address, I will get the answer to that Minnesota SUDA question and see if it rounds here in the online version, and I can let you know for sure. But my gut is telling me that it would. Okay, so here you can manage your payroll costs. Again, if you don't want to see this stuff, you can hide it. But it tells you your next payroll due date, gives you all your employees. You can add your employees and stuff through here. The reporting, again, if you go under the all reports, you have some employees. You can look at a checklist. So it tells you how many payroll checks you've written. Gives you some information here, like that pop-up boxes, if you needed to void or delete a payroll check, how to handle that. I'm sorry, the report's not placed. So if you have multiple work sites, you can break employee costs through the multiple work sites. Let's see what this question is real quick. Okay, I will certainly email you, Nancy, as soon as I find that out. Alrighty. Billing summary, you got deduction summaries, you got details, all of your payroll reports that you would want. And some of these reports kind of give you the same information just in different formats. Your total payroll costs, the total pay, all those sorts of reports are in your reporting section under Manage Payroll. And again, the taxes here, your quarterly forms, you can e-file your 941s right through here if you want, if you have it set up that way, or you can just print them out. QuickBooks will fill in all of the payroll information for whatever quarter you have selected. Your annual forms would be like your 940. All of that would kind of come in. QuickBooks will pull all that data in for you. You can print your W-2s through here. Minnesota W-2s, your Wisconsin W-2 which is the withholding reconciliation. Again, you can print one out and file through here. A lot of these states now are requiring that you do all of this stuff electronically. So if you're not going to file electronically through QuickBooks, you still need to go to those websites and file accordingly there. But you can print employee copies of the W-2s. You can archive them. You can see your archive W-2s, so if you last year's W-2s, whatnot. You can get to your employee setup forms here. If there's a new, like Wisconsin has the new hire reporting form, you can print it here. Lots of different forms, I-9s, W-4s, all that kind of stuff is right into it. So you don't need to go to, the IRS website to get the W-4, you don't need to go somewhere else to get the W-9. They're all kind of right in here for you. And they'll automatically update as they come out too, since QuickBooks Online is obviously a web-based service. It's constantly updating, so you don't need to wait for different updates to come through before you can print a certain form, those kinds of things. You also don't need to take any backups of your QuickBooks because it's online. It's in the cloud. It's automatically saved anytime you go in here. And the security features with the QuickBooks Online have greatly improved. They actually have the same security that they're required to use the same security settings as all of the credit card companies out there. So your data should be protected that way. And then here's just some employer setup forms. If you need to register with the state of Minnesota for SUDA or Wisconsin or whatnot, those other forms are in here as well. So that's kind of your taxes. Oh, they hit a system error. I wonder if I've been in here too long. Oh, there we go. So those are your taxes. Forms are in there. I think they shut off my payroll service. They don't want me cheating in here, so they can cut me out. But like I had said, QuickBooks Online is coming out too with a bunch of different apps that you can use. These apps can do anything from invoicing your customers to sorting and entering in your vendor bills. There's a lot of different features. They're constantly changing. They're constantly coming out with new stuff. So keep your eyes open for that stuff if you're going to utilize everything that we can with the QuickBooks Online feature. One last thing here before I take any final questions is QuickBooks Online also has an app that you can put on your phone. It does look a little bit different through the phone app versus your on a computer here, but it essentially, you can do everything that you need to do out of QuickBooks Online from your phone. So it's really nice if you're on the road a lot, or if you're working on vacation, which you shouldn't do anyway, but if you can't help yourself, you have your phone there, you can do whatever it is that you need to do. So hopefully everybody learned something today with the QuickBooks Online version. Again, it is constantly changing and updating and becoming bigger and better every day. If you ever have any questions or any specific questions, you can always feel free to contact me. You can just give Hawkins Ash CPA firm a call here in La Crosse. I'm out of the La Crosse, Wisconsin office, and ask for Beth, and they will get you to me, and I'd be more than happy to give any assistance that I can. We do also provide some one-on-one service if somebody's looking for some more training or some more specific training or one-on-one training. I do also provide that as well. So I just want to thank everybody for joining me today. Hopefully you feel a little bit more comfortable using the QuickBooks Online version. It is an awesome tool to have at your disposal. Again, I'll stay on here for a few more minutes. If anybody has any last questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I hope everybody has a great weekend and a great holiday season. Thank you.